Herbert's 100 harem. Oh my goodness, I thought something was up. He's adorable. Herbert's first impression of Malia is that she's definitely Isma's daughter. An entirely different species or not, it's clear as day that the Batwoman has been born from the nightmare insect monster. With tits. I know, right? It's like a small army of Trets were all just pressed into one place. Feel out his arms. He's as hard as a bulkhead when he's relaxed. Emira gushes as well, showing that the family gregariousness is indeed genetic. Isma, not to be outdone by her daughter and granddaughter, lets out a squee-like sound as she sweeps Malia, Herbert, and Emira up in a massive hug and croons at them. "My family is so cute," she gushes. "Oh my God, woman!" Herbert groans, or rather tries to, as his face is being pressed hard into Emira's cleavage. "Mother, it's been so much fun here. Did you know the Jalic are actually approaching breeding season where they go on massive hunts to prove their worth to the females? It's so fascinating to see a species where the males are as common as the females. They feed their mates while she sits on the eggs to keep them warm so the best hunters get the most attention from the females." Malia gushes happily. "I knew conservation was the right path for you, my dear. You've always appreciated the beauty of nature so keenly." Isma gushes right back, and Herbert takes the time to phase both himself and Emira out of the woman's grip. He can't take more than a step away, carrying the girl princess style, before Isma's tail wraps around them. "And here is our big hunter. This is Herbert, your nephew and father of your grandnephew in progress. Okay, Granny, you crossed the line into overwhelming about 5 minutes ago and have only sped up." Herbert notes and gets a pat on the head in return from the immensely matronizing woman who's in full grand matriarch mode. Sass, class, and everything in between will only feed the fire. "So you did mention hunting, but you were one of the loudest voices in ensuring the Jalic would be protected. What's going on, Mother?" "Oh, don't get huffy. It's family time. Relax. Have fun." Isma gushes out as Emira giggles a bit, cuddling as she can into Herbert. She's made no move at all to be put down in any capacity. "It's quite simple. I want to see how little Herbert here works with nature. He's already figured out the first test and has a proper mindset for a hunter rather than a poacher or murderer. But I want to see how well he can get along with nature. Can he move with the Jalic rather than against them? This is going to be an insane inversion of normal falconry, but should be doable." Herbert notes, and everyone looks towards him. "Oh, come on. Surely you'd start expecting me to have plans by now." "Well, yes, but..." Malia looks so wonderfully baffled. "Mother," Malia protests as Isma giggles. "So what's the plan?" Emira asks. "Find a Jalic having a bit of a hard time, drop down and use my Axiom to show good intention, then help guide the big fellow to some game to not only encourage teamwork, but to prove that I'm friendly, then when he's proving himself and secured a girlfriend, I go out and find another struggler, see if I can encourage cooperation and the wisdom of listening to others into the species. It might even speed up their development into people." Herbert offers, and they all give him odd looks. "Really? That's an interesting point of view. Now, how do you stop some legend or myth being made about you?" Malia asks, and Herbert raises an eyebrow. "That's not possible. Any contact whatsoever can cause a story to begin. I need to keep the story benevolent so they don't freak out when official first contact starts." "And if they attack?" Malia asks. "Dodge, evade, avoid, and escape. Teach them that attacking a person is just a waste of time and energy." "Wasteful? Not dangerous?" "Danger can have an allure. Not to mention I can't make it dangerous without possibly hurting or killing one, which I dare say is likely off limits," Herbert notes. "Very off limits," Malia notes before smiling. "So your idea of what to do is basically act as an advisor and helpful assistant?" "Essentially," Herbert offers. Granted, these creatures are so large by comparison to me, I'll be able to ride them as this happens, so it'll be a roller coaster for me and a bounty for them. A win-win scenario. I like it. How will you find the prey animals for the Jalik? That's where the girls are going to help. My plan is to have them fly small ships working as spotters, working higher up than the Jalik birds and therefore out of the way and not hurting them at all. Herbert notes, which would allow all the girls to increase their hunting skills without the more squeamish girls having issue with it or risking the pregnancies, Ymira says with a hand on her stomach. Speaking of, what's on the way? A little human girl? A Zayden boy? Malia asks, and Ymira smiles. Zayden boy. The egg emerges next week, Ymira says, and Malia hugs her tightly. Human girl. Very early in development, but clear as day, Yzma says, and Malia gives out a scandalized gasp and looks to Herbert, who holds up his hands and shakes his head. Not from me, Herbert protests. There have been banks set up from the humans. One of the ways they've been supplementing the economy of the undaunted. 25,000 plus shipping and handling. A pittance for me, but it also guarantees that the child is born to a wealthy and well-off woman. Yzma admits. Apparently, one, Horace Blue is the source of my donation. Oh, the big guy. You might want to try and contact him after he gets set up on Lacrin. He's part of a huge chunk of drama at the moment, so letting him know he's got an adorable little girl bouncing around might be helpful. Herbert adds, Really? Which Lacrin? There are many of them, and I can think of any number of reasons for someone from the Undaunted to have an interest in most of them. Recruitment being one, production and manufacture being others. There are even a few hunting worlds with the title of Lacran. There's one in wild space, a failed colony. I don't know all the information, and a lot of what I do know is classified until we have a good grasp on the situation. But long story short, due to shenanigans, Sergeant Jasper Blue, Horace Blue's brother, is trapped on Lacrin and trying to stabilize the descendants of the failed colony. So it's a rescue and uplift effort heading over. There's also a lot of drama involved, but those details go into classified territory. How classified? Yzma asks. No more than 6 months for most of the details to be released without issue. Herbert notes, and both adult women snort. That's practically tomorrow. I can wait that. Malia remarks, and Yzma smiles. More the same conversation to my perspective, but oh, Granny Yzma is an old lady. She's been around the block a few times more than most, Yzma says with a smile. So why'd you call him the big guy? We're developing specialized squadrons with unique capabilities. He's part of Titan Squad. One of them anyways. Titan Squad members start at Canador size and get bigger, he says. I didn't know humans could grow so large. Malia notes curiously. Not naturally, but with Axiom, the lines of what you want to do and what you can do blurs fairly heavily. Herbert replies, Titan Squad is mostly about raw power and intimidation. After all, say what you will about larger sizes just being larger targets. There's something primal about being stared down by something that has to crouch to even regard you properly. Oh? Yzma asks. Then those lava serpents must have been terrifying. On some level, yes. I was dealing with more a natural disaster shaped like an animal rather than an actual creature, not something in the usual wheelhouse of killable. Herbert remarks. He then takes a deep breath. If a Skathak lava serpent were to suddenly be found on Earth and survive the lack of Axiom, it would destroy entire nations before being felled. When you put it like that, then the idea of such a creature is indeed terrifying. Yzma notes, placing him and Ymira down at last before looming over him and looking down. And what does it make you? A man who made sport of such things? Very, very lucky. Herbert answers immediately. Humility or self-depreciation? She asks, Axiom churning as her thoughts whirl and twist behind her head crest. How is it that you still have mystery about you after I've studied you so long?" "How indeed?" he asks, and she scoffs in amusement. "Ah, well, that's the fun of life. More mysteries, always more mysteries," she notes. "Now, weren't we going to get a little tour of this lovely station?" "Oh, it's nothing much, grandmother. Not even a quarter of the size of Octoron Spin or other such residential station. The labs are scientists only, and they're easily half the structure barring engines, support systems, and other infrastructure." Malia dismisses with a wave of her hand. That's when Herbert finally spots it. It was hard to find, but the adaptation of the Zeden that Malia possesses is in her fingers and likely toes, the tiny twist of Axiom that allows them to stick to walls and ceiling, an instinctive ability that allows them almost unparalleled movement options, surpassed only by full-on flight or amphibious natures. Zeden were technically not amphibious themselves, just very comfortable in the water. "It's not like the station hasn't been poked all over by the girls at this point anyways," Herbert replies and gets some glances his way. "What? Did you think the rest of the family would sit still and do nothing when there's a whole new place to bounce around?" "Well, yes, but it's also given me a bit of a map to work with," Herbert remarks with a bit of a swagger, and he glances to Amira, still in his arms, still happy to be there. He then shrugs. "Come on, I know my way around now." "Excuse me?" "I have my ways," he says coyly. "You've been keeping mental track of your family's Axiom signatures and their movements mapped out the area." Isma realizes. "Hey, thanks for ruining the mystery." Herbert replies. "I was going to ride on that for a while, but nope." "Oh, come on now, don't get huffy." Isma chides him. "It doesn't suit you when you're holding my granddaughter like that." "I don't think she'll let me put her down," Herbert answers. "Nope," Amira confirms. "See?" Herbert asks, and Isma giggles a touch. "Oh, you're fitting in fine, nephew. If anything, I'm worried that you'll be as bad as mother in few years," Malia says with a smile. It turns into a scoff as Herbert lets out a touch of evil laughter, and Isma giggles at that. "Family," Malia says before pausing. Oh no, I got so caught up in catching up that I forget to bring out the documents and forms for letting you on Jalik." "Oops." Herbert notes, and Amira dissolves into very familiar giggles. About 30 minutes later, they're attempting to leave the office again and waiting on Malia's go-ahead that they haven't forgotten something else. They're in the clear and leave the small office on the larger station. The whole station is a typical observation-based one, a Mechlin Industries standard system base. One of the major companies that was older than the Mechan Reach in where the world it was founded on voted to be part of. It must have been interesting to have an entire political policy spring up around one's manufacturing company. The entire station was designed to be towed with ease once the observation is finished. Stations of the model could even be inhabited while being towed and operate as usual. Their engines only offered basic positioning, and they have no ability to ride the Axiom lanes, which really cuts the cost of these things. Of course, it also meant that bolder and more brazen pirates could literally hijack the entire station by grabbing onto it with tugs and flying off with the entire station as a prize, hence the defense platforms around it. There for both protecting Jalik from poachers and the station from pirates. The large screens that projected what the space outside looks like shows several of the independent defense platforms floating in orbit around the station, and in the distance is the beautiful world of Jalik, all over the tall internal towers, with walkways that made the space station, are little dark forms or leaping distortions wherever Herbert can sense the axiom of his wives. It was a trick he had developed at Defenestration Nation, but would ignore it in order to make the games fairer. After all, if you have a cheat code to something, it's really hard to get any better at it, even if it can be fun to cheat like a bastard from time to time. A bit over half the towers, had levels upon levels of labs and studies for those trying to make sure that everything could be understood about the Jalak before they joined the wider galactic community. It wouldn't do for a first contact feast to be poisonous after all. "Finished up down there?" Baridzi asks from right above them. Malia actually jumps, then gives Herbert a dirty look. "What? Why weren't you surprised? Ymira and Mother, I understand, they can see that way. But she should have scared you too. Weren't you paying attention? I've made a point of sensing everyone's axiom with ease. I don't need to look at Baridzi to know it's not only her up there, but Valai and Kroon are hanging out behind her." Malia looks up and then lets out a not sound higher than Herbert can hear, and her eyebrows go up. "Oh, okay. That's a very precise level of axiom sensing." "Not really. I memorize their patterns so they always stand out to me." "So that's how you keep doing it?" Valai protests, fading into sight with a finger pointed at him accusingly. "You're cheating." "Not at all. If I can only sense someone through the axiom at Defenestration Nation, then I deliberately let them have the win." He counters, and her expression lets him know exactly what she's thinking. "Bullshit," she says in English. Apparently she's been teaching herself the more amusing words of the language.